Yes.
Yeah. My name is Harshakshit. And thanks Nal Dubai for having me on board. So today I will be talking about payment gateways, and so let's break into payment gateways. So okay, my name, as Prahlad introduced me, my name is Harshakshit. I'm a co-organizer of Google Developers Group Ranchi, and I'm working as security analyst intern at Twinbit. And last month, I even got acknowledged by Google for reporting a valid security issue on their platform. So yeah, that's me. So Prahlad, actually, someone is trying to join. Can you see that? Actually, I'm
Yeah, somebody
getting.
will take care of it. Somebody will take care of it.
Okay, okay, okay. So yeah. So that this will be the agenda we'll be following in our today's session. So starting from introduction to payment gateways, then we will move on to look what are the web application that uses payment gateways. Then we will be analyzing the request and responses that goes to and fro the payment gateways. Then we will be looking into some different attack methodologies to exploit payment gateways. And at last, I will be winding up this session with some tips and tricks and bonus information that I have gathered during my research, and I was also working in a payment firm. So yeah, let's go through. Let's start our session. So, what is a payment gateway? Well, an online payment gateway is a tunnel that connects your bank account to the platform where you need to transfer your money. A payment gateway is software that authorizes you to conduct an online transaction through different payment modes like net banking, credit card, debit card, unified payments interface, that is UPI. Basically, UPI is used in India, and it is being introduced by government of India, and many online wallets that are available these days. So I will be telling you, I will be taking you through some steps, and you can easily visualize those steps with the picture I'm sharing on my screen. Okay. So to explain this in simple terms, at the time of buying a book from a popular digital platform like Amazon, when you make the payment for the book, payment gateway helps you in the process by transferring your money to Amazon. So let's understand how payment gateway works. A payment gateway focuses on securing the sensitive information given by the user throughout the payment process. It encrypts data such as card information and bank account details to ensure security for the user. So we will seeing the basic steps how a typical payment gateway works. So starting from the step one, a customer places his or her order and then presses the submit or checkout button on the website. Once this happens, the website or the e-commerce platform takes the customer to a payment gateway where he or she enters all the relevant information about the bank or the card they are using to pay. The payment gateway then takes the user directly to the page of the issuing bank or a 3D secure page asking for the transaction to be authorized. So let me show you how I will show you the 3D secure page in the next slide. So once the payment gateway gets the approval for the transaction, the bank then checks whether the customer has sufficient balance in the account to make this transaction success or not. Moving on to the next step, the payment gateway sends a message to the merchant accordingly. If the reply from the bank is a no, if the reply from the bank is a no, then the merchant subsequently sends an error message to the customer, telling them about the issue with the card or the bank account. If the response is a yes from the bank portal, then the merchant seeks the transaction from the bank. So the final step, the bank settles the money with the payment gateway, which in turn settles the money with the merchant. Once this process is completed, the customer gets a confirmation message of the order is placed. So that's what's the steps being followed in the payment gateway, and I hope you got the visualization of the whole process, right? And you can just go through the slides and you will get it easily. Actually, it's not a very complicated thing. So this is how a 3D secure page looks like, right? So you can see that this is a 3D secure page, or let's say a payment gateway interface of the Razorpay, one of the popular payment gateways in India. So yeah, you can see that you can enter some your payment details like debit card, credit card, net banking details, wallet details, UPI, and it then redirects you the bank details you are providing with. So moving on to our next slide. So these are some payment gateway uh, you might be familiar with, or I will be introducing you, like Razorpay, Cashfree, Paytm, PayPal, and PayU. So let's move on to our next slide. So web application using the payment gateway. So what kind of web application must be using this payment gateway, right? So any online web application that actually have every website that processes payment on their platform has a payment gateway. Like for example, e-commerce website like Amazon, Flipkart, or Snapdeal, something like that. Every e-commerce website has an integrated payment gateway. Then online entertainment website like Netflix, Sony Live, Hotstar, they have payment gateway. Travel website, Airbnb, Make My Trip, and such websites out there. So and etc. There are a lot of, actually. I was just giving you an overview what kind of website must be having the payment gateways. So every website that processes payments on their website has the payment gateway. So moving on to our next slide. So before performing any attacks, so reconnaissance is the most important thing, and everyone must be aware of that. In the attack, there is almost 80% reconnaissance and 20% is the exploitation part. So we will be seeing what kind of reconnaissance is required in this type of attack, starting from the payment gateways documentation. So I will make you walk through payment gateways documentation for an example. Okay, I won't be demonstrating any attacks. I will be just showing you what kind of details, what kind of relevant details can be found in a payment gateways documentation. Okay, so I have this like Paytm's payment gateway documentation. So I will make you walk through this. So yeah. So as I've also told you about some steps that is being followed in the payment gateways to make the transaction. So they have also mentioned these steps on their document in their documentation as well. So let's start. So steps in processing payment via Paytm standard checkout. Okay. So the step one, at the click of place order payment button by customer on a website, that it creates an order in your system and generate the required payload for payment request. Parameters of payload are provided below. So these are the parameters that is being sent in the request, and that request is a message that is being sent from the merchant side to the bank from going through the payment gateway. So let's see with an attacker points of view, what are the relevant parameters. So let's see. So made order ID, customer ID, transaction amount. Okay. So transaction amount is one of the relevant parameter. I will be telling you why these are. Just to keep in mind these parameters, I will be introducing you to. So later I will tell you how these parameters are relevant. Okay, and in the attack in the slides that I have mentioned in the future slides. Okay. So okay, moving on to next. So next we have checksum hash. Well, basically a checksum hash, or let's say a hash provided in the request or response, it is also present in the response. Okay. So checksum hash is basically the encryption between the bank and the merchant website, and that is being provided by the payment gateway, and it is basically for to avoid the tampering, that like changing the amount or like any other parameter. But still it can be tampered if you know the algorithms the payment gateway is using to generate these hashes. Okay, so where you will find these algorithms, I will let you know in upcoming slides. So moving, so I don't think any other relative parameters is there in step one. So let's move on to step two. So in step two, generate checksum hash using Paytm library with parameters in key value pairs. Using the payload and checksum hashes, make an HTML form post and redirect customer to Paytm server. Code snippets and GitHub links for the checksum utility and HTML form post are provided below. Okay, so I have also mentioned the GitHub recon, right? You can see in the slide, GitHub recon is at the last. So why GitHub recon? Well, because GitHub contains, because the GitHub repos or GitHub repository contains those, may contain those algorithms that is being used to generate those checksum hashes. Okay, so you might get an overview or just an idea that how it is being created, or you can try to break the encryption as well. So that why GitHub recon is important as well. So you can find the you may find, or I'm not just saying that you can you just go in the GitHub and you can find that algorithm, but yeah, you can find it in, you can sometimes get those algorithms in the GitHub as well. So let's move on to our next slide. So sorry, the next step, step 3. Customer fill the payment details and is redirected to bank page for authorization. Once the transaction is authorized, Paytm receives the response from the bank and returns a status to a website via your callback URL. Response attributes, description, and sample HTML post is provided below. So this is the response message that is being sent from the bank end to the merchant website through the payment gateway. And the response also includes some parameters that can be tampered to attack the payment gateway and manipulate the payment or amount. Okay, so let's see what are the relevant parameters in the response. So transaction amount, of course, the transaction amount is very relevant. Then the currency. So you must be wondering why currency is important, right? So just let imagine. Okay, so there is a payment going on worth $100. Okay, so the currency would be mentioned over there might be USD. So it is $100. If you manipulate the currency and make it INR, so like $100 is somehow equivalent to like 7,500 rupees in Indian currency, and you make it INR, so it will be now be 100 rupees. So you can see the difference, right? So it makes a difference of like 7,400. So that's why currency is also a relevant parameter. And sometimes it may be possible that other parameters like transaction amount, status, response code is being validated from the server side, but it may or may be not possible or may not be happening, like they will be validating the currency parameter as well. So you can manipulate the currency parameter here as well. Okay, so the next parameter is status. So it has three values like TXN success, TXN failure, and TXN pending. When the transaction fails, either it is a TXN failure or pending. So you may try to may try to replace it with TXN success, or God knows, it may also make your failed transaction to success. Next is the response code. Let's see what's in the response code. It's in the PDF, right? So okay, so this is a PDF documentation provided by Paytm, and it contains like response code, response message, and payment status. We have seen the payment status, right? So response code. So there are different response code for different type of failure caused by the customer, either it system error or there are various terms like lost card received, bank communication error. There are a lot of different response code for different failure, but there is only a single response code for the success. So you can try to replace it with the failed one, and what may happen that your transaction may get successful response message, similar to that. Just a minute. Actually, doesn't it hide? Actually, I couldn't go to the, yeah, sorry. So response message. So you can similarly, similar to response code, there are different response message for the failure, but only the single response message for the success. Okay, replace it accordingly with other response codes and status, and yeah, that is one more parameter that can be manipulated. And at last, checksum hash. That is one of the most important parameter, because actually being implemented to avoid the tampering. But you know what, sometimes it happens that most of the website, like I have seen some, even the big shot website, I don't want to name them, they doesn't actually validate the checksum. They just validate the response code, response message, and the amount, and they just uh, clear the transaction with those parameters, and they don't even look over the checksum hash. So in the most cases, it might be possible that they don't validate, and you just go and replace those response code, response message, and yeah, you can easily manipulate those transactions. So I think that was the last relevant parameter. So let's move on to step 4. So step 4 is checksum has received in response of transaction needs to be verified on merchant server using Paytm library with all the parameters in key value pairs. Okay, so code snippet, GitHub links for the checksum utility are provided here. You can go through the this links and checksum utility, and why it is relevant. I have told you earlier. So moving on to next step, step 5, and the final step: validate transaction response via server-side request using transaction status API. This API requires checksum hash in request and its verification in response. So what happens is, actually the merchant website generates the checksum hash using the payment gateways library, right? And it needs to be verified, and the checksum hash needs to be remain same, or like I can say the encryption needs to be the same while coming back in the response. And if you change the checksum value to some other value, then the transaction will like crash, or let's say it no, won't happen. So that's step 5, and that's the documentation. Let's go back to our slides. So next is response code. Yeah, we have seen the response code, how it is relevant, and it just not the response code, response message, and the status are also relevant parameters. Then comes the source code review, right? So what happens in source code review? It doesn't actually involves the payment gateway. It in the source code review, we have to go through the source code of the merchant website and see that if there is some relevant parameters that is being hidden in the source code. So you can search for some hidden parameters and try to manipulate it. I will be showing you what are the relevant parameters in the source code. Then it is the GitHub recon. I told you why the GitHub recon is important. They might have some documentation, or some like codes, or some like algorithms, or sometimes I would say like sometimes the developer of the merchant website leaves the API keys as well. So really disastrous for the merchant website if they does this type of mistakes. So moving on to the next slide. Well, that's a lot of recon. So now we will be seeing different attack methods that I have discovered in like the last 1 or 2 years. So yeah, so we have analyzed the request and response and how the order gets placed, right? So it's time for the attack. Let's see what are the different attack methodologies. Okay, so generally the attackers uses basically three approaches, right? So first is the noob's way, and it actually doesn't involves the payment gateway. It is just like a source code review, and if you find some relevant parameters, you can try to manipulate it and get your product ordered at the less actual with the at the less price than the actual amount. Okay, so it's a basic attack. You can just do it with a browser also. You don't need any proxy or such kind of tool. So moving on to our next slide. So the hacker's way. So here comes the role of the payment gateway. Okay, and you can see this is the request. This is the request going from the merchant ends to the bank end through the payment gateway, and this is how the request actually looks like. And I have highlighted this transaction amount. Okay, but there is just not only the transaction amount. We have seen the other relevant parameters as well. So you can try to manipulate it accordingly and get like you can sometimes you can manipulate the price over here, and the manipulated price will be reflected at the payment end at the bank's end, and just you can do the transaction, and the order might it might be possible that the order will get placed. Okay, so try to go through the documentation and the codes provided in the documentation, and it really helps in this type of attack, that is the hacker's way. So moving on to our next slide, that's the pro hacker's way. So what is there in the pro hacker's way, right? So actually I considered it like next to impossible, right? Because it has the encryption. We have saw the checksum has, right, that is being implemented to avoid the tampering. And you can see there is a parameter that is mentioned as auth. Well, different payment gateways have other name, like in this case it is auth. In the Paytm it was checksum hash, and I don't know, other payment gateways may have other names. Okay, so this is the encryption, and it is encryption is it implemented just to avoid the tampering. So they want they want uh, allow you to do so. So they, I think, according to my assumptions or like experience, they won't leak any such a thing in their GitHub repository. So even if you get something, try to break it and uh, report it to the concerned organization or the concerned team. Well, so these are the basic three types of attacks. You can try them. Well, and this was all only for the educational purpose. Any harm caused with this using this information, so I won't be responsible for that. This is only for the educational purpose. So moving on to the next slide. So bonus information, right? So the bonus information includes some tips that I have gathered in during my experience, and I have also worked with a company. I can't mention that company due to some reasons. So yeah, let's see what are those bonus information. Okay, the first one. As mentioned above, read the documentation provided by the payment gateway company for the developers of the merchant website. That documentation contains some critical information that will help you to bypass the payment confirmation. That includes the transaction success code, transaction success message, the parameters that are involved, and hashing technique they use in creating the hash, response code, response message, promo code data, etc. So we will also be summarizing what we have seen in the earlier slides. So yeah, that was the first one. Now the second one. Everyone just tries to tamper the price, either at the merchant side or at the payment gateway. But have you ever wondered to tamper the quantity? Yeah, actually, these parameters are actually these payment parameters like amount or any parameter that is equivalent to amount or something like that is being secured from the server side, but the quantity generally doesn't being secured from the server side. So you must be wondering how the quantity will affect this payment process, right? So let's see. So just look for the quantity of similar fields in the packets being captured in the Bob suite. Actually, I use the Bob suite, or you can use some other proxy as well. So I'm mentioning the Bob suite, that is a proxy tool to capture the packet. So Now what happens if we tamper the quantity, right? So let's visualize a product that is worth $120, right? And I'm purchasing 10 quantity of that product. So the basic logic the website must be implementing is like multiplying the quantity with the base price of the product. So 10 multiplied with 120, that is equal to 120 to $1,200, right? So let's tamper the quantity. So earlier the quantity was 10, let's make it like 0.01, and the price that is $120. So the grand total will be equals to somewhat like 0.01 multiplied by 120, that is around $1.2. So you can clearly see the difference, right? So you can find this quantity parameter in the payment gateway, and on the it generally depends on the structure of the website. So you may find it on the website, or you can also find it on the payment gateway as well. Number 3, so try to fuzz other parameters as well that revolves around the money. Okay, like promo code, it gives you the discount. Wallet amount. So actually what happens in the wallet amount is like you must have visited some website, and they are only transacting a partial amount from that wallet, not the complete amount present in the wallet, right? So you can try to increase the wallet amount, and so the actual price may be less than the earlier it was. So yeah, you may have got some idea how the wallet amount can be manipulated, delivery charges or the shipping charges. So try to like fuzz or manipulate every parameter that revolves around money. So well, that was it from my side, and thanks Nal Dubai for hosting me today, and this was a really great session.
Harsh,
So if you have any question,
yeah, before you stop, Harsh, there is a question in the chat. If you can answer that.
Okay, let me see. So yeah, thank you, and these are my social media handles. You can just ping me anytime if you have any queries or questions. And yeah, just don't ask me to help you to bypass any payment that I won't be doing, right? So yeah, if you get something like that, so just report it. So let me see what is the question. Okay, question. Those you mentioned use cases for payment gateway, are they payment gateway and issues or customer e-commerce integration and implementation issues? Basically, I would say that in the most cases, most like 80 to 90%, it is like the issue with the website. As I said, right, you must remember, I said that most of the website don't validate the checksum parameter. So the payment verification can be easily bypassed. So yeah, that is mostly the e-commerce integration and implementation issues. Yeah, did you get the answer?
Thank you, Harsh.
Okay, so I think that was it, right? Okay, someone is asking any checklist. How about PCI DSS test cases? I actually didn't get your question. Okay, what you can do is you can ping me on you can mail me or ping me on any of like Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. I will try to answer you as soon as possible. Okay, so yeah, that was it. So thank you, Prahlad, for me. So shall I stop my screen sharing?
Yes.
Thank you, Harsh.
Okay.